By the end of this video, you'll discover how to stay empathic without losing yourself, so you can support others without absorbing their stress as a highly sensitive person. In this video, you'll discover why empathy without inner boundaries leads to burnout for HSPs, the subtle signs you've slipped from empathic presence into emotional merging, and a powerful way to reconnect with yourself even in the middle of someone else's emotional storm. Many highly sensitive people mistake empathy for absorption. You think you're being loving, you think you're being supportive, you think you're being present, but what sometimes is actually happening is that your nervous system is merging with someone else's. And this can happen so subtly that you don't even notice. You feel what they feel, and sometimes you feel more than they feel. You're constantly scanning the other person for emotional cues, and you may walk away from a conversation feeling exhausted or foggy, like you've lost yourself somehow. Most HSPs think that this is just the cost of being empathic, but it's not. This is what happens when you don't have inner separation, and over time, it can lead to burnout. When HSPs don't learn how to create emotional space inside of themselves, then they start to organize their lives around avoiding other people's moods. A classic example of this for me is not bringing something up to my partner because I think he may react or dislike it. And this leads me to a kind of separation, an emotional separation, almost a kind of secrecy in a way, or a kind of suppression of my own needs or desires. And I end up sometimes as a result blowing up later when, not I blow up, but like it turns into a blow up later on when it does end up coming out. So if you've noticed yourself just navigating super carefully around everyone else's moods, this can be a kind of clue that this is more, there's like a little need for some emotional separation there. The empathy has become, has crossed over into a little bit of a merging. Also, if you don't know how to create emotional space within yourself, then you may spend hours or even days recovering from small interactions because it's impacting you. Some of this is just being an HSP. That's natural because we're sensitive, but it is greatly exaggerated when you don't have a healthy sense of separation between yourself and the other person. If that healthy separation is actually there, you can be super sensitive, but the impact is going to be on a completely different level. It's going to be sensory. It's going to be on a level of, yes, that is something big going on. There's a loud experience, but it doesn't take you down the way it does when you're merged with somebody. Also, if you don't know how to create this emotional space within yourself, you can get stuck in hypervigilance and end up bracing for the next outburst or the next tension that may develop. You may also question your own emotions because they always feel kind of entangled with someone else's. For me, this used to show up as not knowing what I actually liked. In some ways, I still have some of that. And I just became amenable to whatever, oh sure, I'll go along, whatever. And I never allowed myself to ask me what I was interested in. And so this is a growth point for me, is to be checking in, finding out where I actually stand instead of always being connected to another person. And eventually what can happen if you don't know how to create that emotional space inside of yourself, I call it like a healthy separation, then eventually it can lead to shutting down emotionally just to survive, and sometimes cutting off the connection entirely. I've certainly done this And it's something that's easy to come to if you're not learning how to find the subtler and more important separation on the inside. See, if you can't find it on the inside, that separation, then you end up having to create it on the outside, which is really actually overkill. It's not what's actually needed, at least in most cases. So what can begin as empathy can end up sometimes in not only overwhelm, but withdrawal and the end of relationships. But it doesn't have to be that way. Here are a few common mistakes that we HSPs tend to fall into. I'll just name them, and if you recognize anything, then this is just something to be aware of. First of all, mistaking empathy for enmeshment. They're two very different things. You may think you're being kind when you're in the enmeshment kind of space, but what's actually happening is you're disappearing into another person's world. You are vanishing. You are ceasing to exist to some degree by merging in with the other person. So connection is one thing, but enmeshment means like you've lost yourself. Connection means you're present and the other person's present, and there's a connection between the two of you. Enmeshment means that you are no longer present, or not very much so, and it's all about the other person, and you've just become a satellite for that person. So empathy is one thing, but enmeshment is a completely different thing. Empathy means I feel for you, I am with you, I care about you. And this is a beautiful thing. But it also means that I'm still here to care for you, as opposed to completely disappearing into the other person. Another common mistake is trying to think your way back to being calm, and this can be just analyzing too much or over-processing, even journaling too much, even though journaling is great. But it's not on the understanding level that this coming back to yourself happens. It has to happen on a feeling level. And all of these different tools can help, but thinking alone is just a piece of it. Like thinking has to be connected to emotion, it has to be connected to the body. All of that has to line up for me to come back and be present with myself when I'm with another person. Another common thing that we tend to do is to believe that our sensitivity is the problem. And so if you find yourself wishing you weren't so affected by people, instead of learning how to stay with yourself, then you get caught into a loop of just feeling sorry for yourself or wishing you were different or something along those lines, instead of learning an actual skill, which is how can I be me, let you be you, and have some kind of relationship between the two of us. It's not an easy ask, but it is a doable thing. Another common mistake is taking energetic responsibility for others. So you may absorb their mood and then try to fix it, even when they didn't ask you to. And this is so easy to fall into. It's, just sometimes we call it codependence. But it's like, I see what your problem is. I know what to do. And so I just start doing it as if it were my problem. But it's actually disrespectful to the other person. And it creates this extra burden in your life that means that now any problems you had to deal with are on hold while you're dealing with someone else's problems. And so once again, you end up disappearing. And then finally, you can end up judging yourself for being too much or too emotional, and the common kind of self-judgments that HSPs tend to fall into, which just can add shame on top of the overwhelm that you may already be feeling. So here's the truth. Your empathy isn't the problem. The problem is that no one ever taught us how to have internal boundaries. You can care deeply with someone without caring for their emotional burden. Caring with is different than caring for. And we can dissect the language. It's not perfect here, but the idea is if I'm completely merging with someone, I'm losing something of myself. And if that happens, it's not so healthy. If I can care for someone and not lose myself, that can be perfectly healthy. I may have to modulate how much exposure I do of that just to stay balanced, but it's not taking me into a place where I disappear. So you can stay present without getting pulled under. That's the idea. You can feel connected without losing yourself, but only when you build the internal skill of separation without disconnection. And this is what we tend to do. We go from one extreme to the other. Either I'm fully merged or I have to just break the relationship and disappear that way. So this is that little place in the middle where I can find separation without disconnection. And this is not a mindset shift. It's a body-based kind of reset. The deeper solution isn't boundaries in the external sense, it's boundaries in the internal sense. It's the capacity to feel deeply without losing your center, to witness someone else's experience without inhabiting it, to remain yourself while staying in relationship. This is the difference between empathy that depletes you and empathy that actually stabilizes you. And it's a learnable skill. Being in relationship when someone else is emotionally overwhelmed is like standing in a pool with them. Empathetic or empathic entanglement is when you wade into that pool too far, and suddenly you're both treading water and you're both exhausted and you're unable to support each other. Empathic presence, on the other hand, is when you stay in the shallow end, grounded yourself, steady, still in the water with them, but your feet are planted and your head is above the water. You're available, you're attuned, but you're not drowning alongside them. To help take a first step with this, I've created something called the Empath Survival Kit. And it's designed specifically for HSPs who absorb other people's energy and emotions, especially during moments of intensity. Because when someone around you is stressed or upset or spiraling, it's not always easy to stay in your own experience. Suddenly you're anxious too, and you're tense or foggy or emotionally hijacked. You know it's not your job to fix them, but that's intellectual. And your system, your body, your nervous system hasn't caught up with that intelligence, which is just staying in the brain only. This guide offers a way out of that pattern in real time. You don't need to spend hours processing or overthinking. You just need a few simple tools that help you come back to your own breath again, your own energy, and your own ground. So in this little kit, you'll find 5 body-based reset practices to regulate your nervous system in the moment, a few short prompts to help you shift from entangled to more steady, and a few gentle cues that bring your awareness back to center without shutting down or checking out. It's not about becoming less sensitive, it's about learning how to stay rooted in yourself even when emotions are high. So if you find yourself totally thrown off when someone else is upset, if you walk away from a single conversation feeling drained, tense, or foggy, but what you really want is to stay grounded, present, and connected without going numb, that's exactly why I created the Empath Survival Kit. It's a short guide to help you regulate in real time. No overthinking, no emotional spiraling. Just go to the video description, click on the first link, or visit trueinnerfreedom.com/empath-survival-kit. Enter your details and I'll send it over.